Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Bud Light. Bud Light has been totally destroyed. They've now officially lost the #1 spot for 2023 for sales in volume, for sales in revenue, to Modelo Especial. That means that from the beginning of the year up until now, even though Bud Light started out as #1 in both categories, now they are not #1 in both categories for 2023, and it's still only August. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. I'm trying to get to 30,000 subscribers, so if you can't subscribe, please do subscribe. From CNN Business, and I did confirm this story this morning with Bump Williams Consulting as well, with Bump himself, more bad news for Bud Light as Modelo soars in sales. This is the end of August changeover that looked like was going to happen. It's actually now happened. Modelo Especial is now officially America's best-selling beer, dethroning Bud Light, whose popularity faded during the Dylan Mulvaney transgender controversy. Sales of Modelo at grocery stores, convenience stores, and liquor stores, wherever off-premise beer is sold, have surpassed Bud Light sales over the course of 2023, according to newly released Nielsen IQ data, the first time Modelo has ever beaten Bud Light on a year-to-date basis. There's a tight race to the top, with Modelo landing in first place, gaining 8.34% share of dollars spent on beer versus 8.28% for Bud Light through August 12th. It's a significant move for Modelo, since Bud Light has held the position of America's top-selling beer for the large part of the past 2 decades. Summer has been a bright spot for the Mexican lager, with Modelo surpassing Bud Light in May, June, and July monthly sales. Modelo has held a 9.1 share for the past 4 weeks as Bud Light slipped to a 7 share of off-premise beer sales. The issue here too is it's not just for the month of August, it's collectively for the entire year so far in 2023. And Bud Light has nowhere else to go but down. I'm not even sure if they'll be #2 by the time the year 2023 is out. Additionally, for the future, Anheuser-Busch now has to adjust their volumes starting in September. They no longer have the demand for production they used to have before their production fell by around 30% nationally on average. They have 19,000 employees. They laid off 2% in marketing and administrative jobs before this sales report. Now they're going to have to look at laying off, unfortunately, a lot more people because they can't just keep producing beer and not selling it. Modelo's move to the top seemed inevitable for at least the last several months, but the timeline accelerated since Bud Light's trends dramatically worsened in April. Ben Steinman is the president of Beer Marketers Insights and told CNN, and it happened far faster than most people expected. However, there's been some material improvement for the Anheuser-Busch brand, Bud Light. According to Beer Business Daily, a trade publication, Nielsen IQ data shows that in recent weeks, Bud Light volumes were down 26.7%, which is slightly better than the roughly 30% the brand had been enduring since spring. The latest numbers that I saw published by Bump Williams Consulting was 29.6%. They're still down a lot, and it's not bouncing back. Quote, "It may be too early to call the bottom, as 1 week does not a trend make, but it's a hopeful sign for the beleaguered brand, particularly if the trend improves sequentially in subsequent weeks," Beer Business Daily wrote in Tuesday's newsletter. But the problem is, not only do more and more people become increasingly aware of how Bud Light is a strange, not wanted type of brand, you don't want to be seen drinking it, but their shelf space is being cut back by major retailers and small retailers too. And also the taps are being removed at many bars and restaurants. They're no longer in the top 3. They used to be the #1. Now they're like the #4. When you have 3 taps, that means you're not even in the bar. As the shelf space is reduced for Bud Light and increased for other brands that actually sell like Modelo, the brand will continue to shrink. Modelo is distributed by New York-based Constellation Brands. The company posted an 11% increase in sales in its second quarter earnings, released in June, bolstered by its beer business, which also owns Corona. Greg Gallagher, vice president of brand marketing for Constellation, recently told CNN that Modelo has been enjoying an incredible run of success for the past several years and said that it wants to expand the dominance it has with Hispanic drinkers to more demographics. Quote, our growth is in maintaining that core, but also bringing in non-Hispanic customers, and we're having incredible success, he said. Well, perhaps they will go ahead and reach out to Dylan Mulvaney or someone else exactly like Dylan Mulvaney and utilize their Instagram to bring in new non-Hispanic customers. But I don't think they're going to actually do that, because if you go too far off of the brand, like Bud Light did, it's not probably going to work out so well. Other Bud Light competitors have seen sales growth this year too, including Molson Coors. Earlier this month, the brewer of Miller Lite and Coors Light beers reported its single best quarter of revenue since its 2005 merger. The combined U.S. sales of its two flagship beers outsold Bud Light by 50% in the second quarter and were 30% higher than Modelo Especial, it said. U.S. beer sales have been completely upended following Bud Light's decision to send a customized can to transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney with Dylan Mulvaney's actual face on the can, which sparked a transphobic backlash. I don't know if it's transphobic, I just think people didn't like what they saw and alienated some of the company's core customer base. Basically alienated all of the core customer base. The company's subsequent response then angered members of the LGBT community. However, the people who saw the response who were not part of the LGBT community also were like, well, this isn't even an apology. What are you trying to say here? And further made Bud Light the kind of brand you didn't want to buy. Anheuser-Busch said in early August that its U.S. revenue fell 10% in the second quarter as sales of its top brands slumped. And they didn't just lose sales of Bud Light, they lost sales of Budweiser, they lost sales of all of their brands because customers were well aware they weren't going to just switch from one Anheuser-Busch brand to another Anheuser-Busch brand. People are too intelligent for that. They're not going to be fooled by the fact that Anheuser-Busch has many brands. Sales to U.S. retailers declined by 14%, underperforming the wider beer industry, primarily due to the decline in the volume of Bud Light, the company reported. Revenue fell $395 million in North America during the period compared to the same time a year ago. That figure included sales in Canada, where revenue rose, suggesting the slump was isolated to the United States and that the losses on Bud Light may have been even greater. The losses were tremendous and they can't be recovered because now that they're losing all of these sales and they had this completely terrible summer, the loss of shelf space will mean there will be less Bud Light that can be sold on shelves. Distributors are getting hurt really badly as well. 500 independent distributors, with a lot of them counting on Anheuser-Busch to promote and market and deliver beer that they could actually sell to their customers. And all of those guys were let down as well. Some of those distributors rely very heavily on Anheuser-Busch, and their businesses, especially in southern states in particular, have been severely damaged. On Reddit, people are still asking each other, why do you think the boycott keeps going on? Particularly the people that are asking, like, why does the boycott keep going on? Are people that are not offended by the woke agenda being pushed everywhere it possibly can be pushed in society. Not enough that it's pushed in schools, not enough that it's pushed in media, not enough that it's pushed in the news. It has to be pushed now on all kinds of products and all kinds of services and by every company. And it needs to be in as many movies as possible, particularly if you're a Disney-owned movie brand. Here's the post. Bud Light. Yes, I'm still talking about this. But why do you think this boycott has so much legs? I think there's a couple of things at play. One, the core consumer felt betrayed. Two, there's simply no shortage of alternative brew lagers to choose from. It's that simple. It's a cookie-cutter product that tried to be too cute. For as much as my fellow conservatives would like to chalk this up as a big-time win, I think the boycott's success is more due to marketing and the industry landscape rather than ideological reasons. Also, my uber-conservative brother-in-law, type of guy who I probably wouldn't ask where he was on January 6th, switched to Modelo, which is hilarious because he'd build the wall himself if he could. Anyway, what's your take on this? And here's the fallacy. People thinking that because Bud Light wasn't aggressively supporting Dylan Mulvaney no matter what happened, that's why the boycott turned out so badly for them. Because Bud Light waffled in their support of Mulvaney and tried to play both sides and lost both audiences. Another person says, I think it was not only that the core customer felt betrayed, but there also wasn't a counter movement. The whole campaign with Mulvaney was to reach out to the LGBT people in order to get them to start drinking Bud, but the campaign was just kind of cringe even if you weren't transphobic. So it came down to one side saying they're not drinking Bud because of Mulvaney, and the other side saying we weren't going to drink it anyway, but you're being really bad about a trans person. Here's somebody that seems to kind of get it. People don't typically want to buy products that shove their culture down the customer's throat. Everyone agrees unless they think their culture should be shoved down people's throats. Here's somebody saying, guys who drink Bud Light aren't usually the most enlightened fellas. Anything that might make someone think they're gay is something they'll never do. So someone who clearly supports the promotion but wants to criticize people not wanting to buy and consume a product that would make other people think they're gay. It's a very strange life that these people lead. And here's a really good insight. I refuse to believe $350 million in lost sales boils down to trans bigotry as well. That vice president of marketing who took a dump on her core consumers had a lot to do with it, in my opinion. Also, nobody talks about how bad Dylan Mulvaney's ad campaign was from a marketing perspective. And here's what Dylan said. Quote, I don't know what March Madness is. I don't know the sport. I obviously don't drink this beer, but they sent me a can with my face on it. Aren't you jealous, actual Bud Light drinkers? Wouldn't you like a can with your face on it? Too bad, cry about it if we don't like you, Bud Light. So hey, go buy this product I don't use. Bottom of the barrel marketing effort, in my opinion. And yeah, believe it or not, people get pissed at you when they can tell you don't use the product you're trying to hawk them. Feel like everyone just gives Dylan a pass on that little part because Dylan's trans. That's a good point. The promotion wasn't a good promotion to begin with, but beyond that, having a product that you're expecting people to pay good money for, that when you consume it, people have to wonder if you're gay or not when you're not gay, it's just not something you should be thinking about with buying beer or eating candy. It should not say anything about your sexuality. It really should just be a product that delivers something that's worth more than the money than you pay for it. It's not an opportunity to push propaganda and in a subtle way force customers to push their propaganda just because they buy a product. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.